Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So obviously if you clicked on this video, you have a general idea of what is about to happen in this video. So a couple nights ago, actually I think it was last night, I'm laying in bed and I'm trying to think of different stories that have happened in my life, different experiences that I have lived to tell about. And for some reason, this experience pops into my head and I'm laying there and I'm thinking about all the details, everything that happened, everything that caused everything to happen. So let me go ahead and give you a little bit of background on the entire story. So when I was a kid, I was just like a normal little kid. I played with my little brat dolls and baby dolls and all that, and I used to play house with my friend and, you know, very normal. But when I turned about 13 to 14 years old, I was completely boy crazy, like most young girls are. I thought about boys day and night. I thought about different boys that I wanted to date. I thought about what I wanted in boys. I always thought about them. And at the time, I actually started doing online dating, but that does not have anything to do with this. I talked to at least 3 different guys, not like dating them. Like I wasn't dating them. I wasn't that type of girl, but I would talk to them and like flirt with them. And I always had someone to hang out with or someone to message. And that's basically what started this whole boy crazy thing. And my best friend and I used to actually sit in our room on, oh shoot, what was that website called? It's called Meet Me Now, but it had a different name back when we used it. And we would get on there for hours. Like I'd go stay the night at her house and we would sit on there for hours and like message different boys. But anyway, so at this time I was pretty boy crazy and I was like developing into the young lady that I was turning into, and I was just talking to different guys. Well, I finally got up the courage to talk to boys in person because I felt pretty confident. I thought I looked okay and it just wasn't that scary for me. Like I could talk to basically anyone and I didn't feel nervous about it. So when I turned 16, I started working at Walmart, and honestly I have so many stories about working at Walmart, and I'm sure that eventually they will all be on here, as many as I can remember. But I remember that I started working there about 3 or 4 weeks after I turned 16, and at the time, I didn't have a boyfriend or anything like that, and so I was just kind of like, every guy that came through my line, I would check them out. Well, there was this guy, and for this story we're going to call him Dylan because his name is actually Dylan. So Dylan would come through my line every now and then, and I remember him because he had all black hair and then he had one streak of blonde right through the front, like right where his bangs were. And I thought he was so cool and so good looking. And I knew that he worked in the back and that he unloaded pallets and all that, and so I knew that he was always around the store and he would always come through my line, and it just was kind of nice to see him. So every time I saw him I got kind of excited and like little butterflies, and it was a very good time for me. And eventually one day after work I was walking around the store and I was kind of looking for him, but I also had to pick up some things before I went home. I think I was looking at makeup or something. And so the makeup aisle is here, and so I'm standing here, and down the aisle there's the pet aisle, and I see him over there and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's Dylan, he's so perfect. This is where I made my mistake. So I walk up to Dylan, I approach him and I'm like, hey, and he's like, oh hey, I was gonna come through your line but you weren't working. And I was like, oh yeah, I just got off work an hour ago. And he's like, oh, then why are you here? And I told him that I had to buy some stuff and I had nothing in my hand, so he was like, what are you buying? And I was like, oh, I gotta go get it. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, you should text me sometime. So I give him my phone number. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. Now obviously it wasn't the biggest mistake because I've made worse mistakes in my life, but this is one of the biggest ones. So I give him my number and I'm very excited because I was like, yes, I finally gave a guy my number in person. Oh, I'm so proud. So I went home and I waited for him to text me. And I'm sitting there waiting this the entire night, waiting for him to get off work, which was not until 1 a.m. But he ends up texting me and we start talking, and he's really nice and funny and I think he's so cute. And then of course he keeps coming to my line at Walmart, and time goes by, and about 2 weeks later he texts me at about 10. And at this time, you have to remember, I was living with my parents, and I wasn't allowed to go over to boys' houses or anything unless there were parents there. But he was 18, I think. I think he lived on his own at the time, so I couldn't go over there, obviously. And I was a good kid, I did not break the rules. Except for one time. Different story though. So he's like, well, what are you doing? Can I come over? And I lived quite a ways out of town. It took 5 minutes to get there from the main part of town, so you actually had to drive out a little ways. And I'm like, well, I live at this place, it's really far out of town, so I mean you could drive out here. And he's like, well, I don't have a car. And this was kind of weird to me because he worked a lot, he had a lot of money, but he just didn't have a car or his license. And so he's like, well, I'll come over anyways. So he walks to my house which I couldn't believe. And at that time I had a car, but I didn't even think to go pick him up because I didn't think he was coming over. And I'm sitting in my living room and I hear a knock on the door. So I go and answer it and Dylan's there and I'm like, oh, I didn't think you were gonna come over tonight. And so he like comes in the house and we're talking and he's kind of giving me this weird vibe. You know how like when a guy is like talking to you and you feel just kind of like awkward, like you don't know what to say to him? Well, that's what he's doing. He's like talking to me. And at this time, like I liked him, but not enough to like want to date him or anything. Like I barely knew him. I had been talking to him for 2 weeks, which is not enough time for me. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm glad you came over. Like, this is fun. So I put on a movie in our other living room. So we had like our family room where we all sat, and then there was like another one when you first walked in. And so we were watching a movie out there and he like, I'm sitting on the floor with my back against the chair. So I'm just sitting like this, like, and he's sitting next to me. And all of a sudden he puts his arm around me and I'm like, could you not, you know? But I don't say anything because it's not that big of a deal. He's not like trying to grope me or anything. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is really awkward. And so I had school the next day and I was like, well, I actually have to get ready for bed because it's like, I have to get up early and all this. And normally I would stay up late talking to him, but I felt just so awkward in the situation. He met my mom, he like went out and talked to her. And when he left, she was like, he gave me weird vibes. And I was like, me too. But before he leaves, he like grabs my face and like pulls me in to kiss me. And this is the most awkward, uncomfortable kiss I've ever experienced. Okay, this was not my first kiss, but he like pulls me in to kiss me and his lips were dry and like kind of like caked in spit. So he like kisses me and I like kind of pull away, but he like pecked me and then I like pulled away and I was like, oh, well, I gotta go to bed. Like, it was nice seeing you. And he's like, well, can't you give me a ride like back to town? And I'm like, oh, well, how'd you get out here? Like, didn't you call a friend? And he was like, oh, no, it's okay. I'll find my own way. So he kind of leaves and I think he could tell like I was feeling really awkward in this situation. And right after he leaves, he sends me a message like, oh, that was so much fun and we should do that again sometime. And I'm like, no. So I didn't even respond. And for the next 2 months, he keeps coming to my line, talking to me, and obviously like I'm trying to tell him like no, but I did not have the heart to be like, I don't like you, like back off of me. So he just decides to stop talking to me for a while, and then he continues texting me a few months after leaving me alone for a few months. And I just never replied. And then one time, this is when I first started dating my husband, I went to Hardee's with him. This was the first time that we had actually hung out by ourselves, like no friends or anything, my husband and I, but obviously he was my boyfriend at the time. And we walk into Hardee's and guess who's working there? And my husband and I are not dating even at this time. We're just hanging out as friends. And I'm like, I can't be here. And he looks at me and he says, why? Like really weirded out by it. And I'm like, there's this guy that works here named Dylan and he's really like clingy and he finally stopped leaving me alone a couple of months ago. So I don't think I should be here. And he's like, it's okay, I'll act like I'm your boyfriend, which I'm like, okay. Like I really liked him. So of course I was totally fine with it. So Will like is holding my hand and like talking sweet to me and like, oh, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. And Dylan's taking our order and he's like, well, who's this? And I'm like, oh, this is my boyfriend Will. And he's like, nice to meet you. And then he's like, so how long have you guys been together? And I was like, oh, a couple of months. And it's just really awkward because obviously we haven't even been together. But he's like, oh, well, it's really good to see you. I really miss hanging out with you. And I'm like, yeah, same. So Will gets our food and he goes back to the table and I'm getting our drinks. And as I'm getting our drinks, Dylan decides to come over and talk to me and he's like, so why are you with him? And he's like questioning me about my entire relationship. And I'm just like, oh, I really love him. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. I can't ever see us breaking up, which came true, which I'm really happy about. But anyways, so he like kept trying to talk to me, and even when Will and I were eating our food, he would like come over and like sweep around our table and try talking to me, and I was just kind of like, don't talk to me. But I hate to sound like the rudest person in the planet of ever, but what do you do in that situation, you know? I did not have the heart to tell him like, no, I'm not interested. I had stopped replying to his text messages. I stopped seeing him at Walmart. It was just so weird. But I wanted to share the situation because I can't believe, like, I caused my own stalker, basically. If you think about it, if I wouldn't have asked for his number or given him my number, then none of that would have happened, probably. I don't know. But I just remember him, like, so obsessively texting me. And then I remember one time he was texting me and told me he had a girlfriend and that he was doing really good, but then she would like kick him out of the house every day and that he wanted to have kids with her. He was a mess. Let's just get real. Like, he was a total mess and I should have never been on board with that. But Anyways, this is just a weird story time that I thought of last night, and I thought I would go ahead and share it with you guys. And if you have any similar experiences, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below, because I love to read about those things. I think it's hilarious, and then I don't feel like I'm alone in my pain. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!